Between 1968 and 1985, a serial killer in the hills surrounding Florence, Italy committed 16 murders, targeting couples in secluded spots at night. The case consumed Italian law enforcement for decades, sent innocent men to prison, sparked one of the most sensational trials in Italian history, and ruined the lives of multiple investigators. It was a case where the harder people looked, the more they seemed to destroy. This is the story of the Monster of Florence. Chapter 1. The Gun That Kept Coming Back. The first relevant murder happened on the 22nd of August, 1968, near the town of Signa, south of Florence. A man named Antonio Lo Bianco and a woman named Barbara Loxai were shot dead in a parked car. Loxai was married, but not to Lo Bianco. Her husband, Stefano Mille, was arrested and eventually convicted of the double murder. He served 10 years in prison. But something about the case nagged at investigators years later. The weapon used was a Beretta .22 caliber pistol, and the bullets had a distinctive feature. They were Winchester Series H copper-jacketed hollow point rounds, a specific and unusual type. In 1974, 6 years after the Signa murders and 4 years after Mille began his sentence, a new couple was shot dead in a parked car outside Florence. Same gun, same ammunition, same Winchester Series H rounds confirmed by ballistics. Stefano Mille was in prison. He could not have done it. This created an immediate problem for investigators. Someone else had either committed the 1968 murders and gone undetected, or the gun had changed hands. Over the following years, the attacks continued. 1974, 1975, and then again in 1981, 1982, 1983, 1984, and 1985. 16 victims in total. The same gun, confirmed by ballistics each time. And something else. The killer was removing body parts from the female victims, particularly excising portions of the left breast and, in later attacks, genital tissue. He was apparently keeping these as trophies. The fear in the Florentine hills became total. Chapter 2. The Wrong Men, Years of Suffering. Italian investigators and press christened the unknown killer Il Mostro di Florence, the Monster of Florence. The name stuck, and so did a series of catastrophic miscarriages of justice that would define the investigation for years. In the early 1980s, attention shifted to a group of men from Sardinia, with links to the original 1968 victim Barbara Loxai and her husband Mille. These men, collectively referred to as the Sardinian Trail, were theorized to have passed the murder weapon amongst themselves. Investigators built a case around a man named Pietro Paxiani, a convicted murderer and rapist from the Florentine countryside, who was brought to trial in 1994 for the monster murders. The trial was a national spectacle in Italy. Paxiani was a grotesque figure, violent, manipulative, functionally illiterate, and he seemed to fit the public's image of a monster. He was convicted in 1994 and sentenced to life in prison. 2 years later, in 1996, an appeals court overturned the conviction due to insufficient evidence. Paxiani walked free. The prosecution immediately began building a new case. Before a retrial could occur, Paxiani died in February of 1998, found on the floor of his farmhouse. There were initially suspicious circumstances around his death. An unusually high dose of heart medication was found in his system, but Italian authorities ultimately ruled it a natural death. 2 of Paxiani's associates, Mario Vanni and Giancarlo Lodi, were convicted in 1998 of multiple monster murders as Paxiani's alleged accomplices. Lodi had confessed and testified against Vanni. Both sentences stood, and Vanni died in prison in 2009. But enormous doubt has always surrounded these convictions. Lottie was considered an unreliable witness by many legal observers. The physical evidence was thin, and the case still could not definitively explain the 1968 murders or the full ballistic chain of the weapon. If you're watching this for the first time, please consider subscribing and turning on notifications. We cover cases exactly like this one every week, and we'd love to have you along for it. Chapter 3: A prosecutor who went too far. The Monster of Florence case took its strangest and most destructive turn in the 2000s, when a prosecutor named Giuliano Mignini became convinced that the murders had been committed to order, that a satanic sect of wealthy Florentines had hired the monster to collect the body parts for use in occult rituals. This theory was extraordinary. It was also, to the minds of most outside observers, entirely unsupported by evidence. Mignini began investigating members of Florence's upper class. He interviewed and at times accused journalists, doctors, and prominent citizens. An American writer named Douglas Preston had been living in Tuscany and co-writing a book about the Monster of Florence with Italian journalist Mario Spezzi. Both men became targets of the investigation. Spezzi was arrested and jailed for a period on suspicion of involvement in the murders. Preston was questioned under circumstances that led him to flee Italy, fearing arrest. He later wrote about the experience in a book that brought international attention to the way the investigation had metastasized into something dangerous and absurd. Mignini was eventually convicted of abuse of office for his conduct in a different investigation, the murder of Dr. Francesco Narducci, whose death he had also connected to the supposed satanic sect. That conviction was later overturned on appeal. He went on to be the prosecutor in the Amanda Knox case in Perugia, where his conduct was again controversial. The Monster of Florence investigation had, by the 2000s, become a lens through which the pathologies of parts of the Italian justice system were uncomfortably visible. Chapter 4: The Gun, the Truth, and the Cold. Modern forensic re-examination of the Monster of Florence case has increasingly pointed investigators back toward a single individual. The ballistic evidence, the unbroken chain of the Beretta 22 and the Winchester Series H ammunition, is the most solid thread. Some researchers believe that the gun originally used in the 1968 murder of Loxai and Lo Bianco was obtained by the real killer at some point before 1974, whether through direct participation in those murders or through the Sardinian network around the Meal family. One name that recurs in serious investigative reviews is that of a man connected to the Sardinian community in the Florence area, who was never brought to trial for the monster murders. Italian journalist and researcher Francesco Ferri and others have argued that the investigation was derailed so thoroughly by the Paxiani trial, and then by Mignini's satanic sect theory, that the actual evidence trail went cold while attention was elsewhere. As of now, no single person has been definitively and conclusively identified as the Monster of Florence across all of the murders. Vanni and Lottie remain the only living convictions, and questions about the validity of those convictions persist in Italy and internationally. The case has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and dramatizations. It was notably referenced in Thomas Harris's novel Hannibal, in which the investigator hunting Hannibal Lecter works on a thinly fictionalized version of the monster case. The victims, 16 people killed across 17 years in the hills around one of the world's most beautiful cities, have never collectively received definitive justice. The most exhaustive serial killer investigation in Italian history produced wrongful convictions, the imprisonment of journalists, and an ongoing argument about what actually happened that continues to this day. The Monster of Florence killed 16 people across 17 years using the same identifiable weapon, And despite decades of investigation, multiple wrongful imprisonments, and a prosecution theory involving a satanic sect that damaged innocent lives, the case has never been fully and conclusively solved. Thanks for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel. You can also watch more crime videos like this one by clicking on screen.